Jasper Police have gotten a grant for additional enforcement efforts. We'll have more on that. Plus, Farm Credit Mid-America holds a long-anticipated grand opening ceremony for its Jasper location, and Maggie Masters and Shanna Hallett talk about Friday's Otwell 4th of July celebration tonight on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin with a Huntingburg man suspected of dealing synthetic marijuana to area teenagers being arrested. The Du Bois County Sheriff's Department narcotics officer received information about sales of synthetic marijuana, also known as K2, to 14 and 15-year-olds that were taking place at the home of 20-year-old Jacob Hill. On Monday afternoon, the narcotics officer went along with a deputy and a probation officer to Hill's residence in the 900 block of Jackson Street for a probation check. When they arrived at Hill's residence, the officers found a street sign for Jacob Court and a handicapped parking sign hanging on the walls, along with a pipe that had been recently used. Officers also found Dead Man Walking K2 and a plastic container with regular K2 in it. Hill was lodged in the Du Bois County Security Center yesterday morning. He is facing Class D felonies for theft of the traffic signs and for maintaining a common nuisance. He also faces Class A misdemeanors for possession of synthetic marijuana and possession of paraphernalia. A crash on Jasper's southeast side resulted in the arrest of a Jasper man on OWI charges. Just before 9:25 last night, Jasper police were called along State Road 162 for the reported accident. Police say 37-year-old Freddie Cruz was eastbound along State Road 162 at the same time as 58-year-old Glenna Rogers was headed westbound on the highway. Police say Cruz was going eastbound along the north shoulder of the westbound lane. Cruz then saw Rogers' vehicle coming towards him and tried to get into the correct lane, but could not complete the turn before hitting Rogers' vehicle head-on. After further investigation, Cruz was found to be driving under the influence. His BAC registered at just over 0.19%, which is nearly 2.5 times the legal limit. Cruz was arrested and lodged in the Du Bois County Security Center. He is charged for operating while intoxicated, and he was also cited for driving left of center. Damage was estimated at $15,000 for Rogers' vehicle and $6,000 for Cruz's vehicle. There were no injuries in this accident. Rooksar's Wrecker Service also assisted. Funding from the Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council is being put to good use by the Jasper Police Department. Jasper Police Chief Mike Bennett says the department is now providing overtime hours to increase its traffic enforcement efforts targeting impaired and dangerous drivers. Bennett says the department will have increased patrols during peak hours, both to keep the community safe and to get impaired drivers off of the road. Now, the funding is intended to be paid by those violators who have been convicted. The money then goes into the officers' efforts to prevent future violations. Bennett says his department is excited to be part of the extra enforcement. He also wants to remind citizens to be sober while driving in Du Bois County in light of several recent fatal crashes due to impaired driving. The new owners of a downtown Huntingburg restaurant and bar are planning a grand reopening celebration. The Overtimes celebration is set to start at 4 p.m. on Friday, July 18th at the restaurant's location along 4th Street. New owners Mel Bicknell and Craig Meyer will be on hand to greet those in attendance. The Overtime was originally opened back in 1986. It had previously been owned by the Duncan family before being bought by Bicknell and Meyer back in December. The restaurant then transitioned to a non-smoking establishment starting on January 1st. They also made changes to the menu, changes which included the addition of lunch, weeknight, and weekend specials that are not listed on the regular menu. The Overtime is currently open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. on Fridays, noon to 3 a.m. on Saturdays, and noon until the owners decide to close on Sundays. The full menu is available Monday to Saturday, and Sunday's menu is a condensed version. More information about the restaurant can be found by going to their Facebook page. A long-anticipated grand opening ceremony took place earlier today in Jasper. Farm Credit Mid-America cut the ribbon for its new building on the city's south side. The new building is located next to Wings and Rings, and the groundbreaking was done last fall. The company has been in the building for a couple of months now. Farm Credit Mid-America Regional Director Summer Goldman says the transition to the new building has gone well.
It is. It was amazing how quickly we got settled in and are running with it. Folks know exactly where we are. We haven't had any hiccups. We're really excited to be here.
Goldman says the new building offers a functional element that the previous location in Huntingburg just didn't provide for the company. She says the new building is part of the company's plans to prepare for issues that area farmers will face starting in 2016.
2016 is an interesting year. There are certainly indications that there is going to be a reduction in gross farm income, especially on the grain side. And as we all know, grain prices will go down before input costs will go down. It'll go down before rent and land values go down. So 2016 is going to be an interesting year. We're also predicting that there'll be an interest rate increase by then, but we're preparing for that right now.
The move into the new Jasper location also coincides with the recent growth of the business. The new location is just over 5,100 square feet and has room for up to 12 employees. Now, Farm Credit Mid-America serves nearly 97,000 farmers, agribusinesses, and rural residents in Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. For more information, you can call 1-800-444-FARM, or you can go online to e-farmcredit.com. Members of the Cannelton School Board have been dismissed from a civil lawsuit against former District Superintendent Al Chapman. The announcement was made official at this past month's school board meeting by current Superintendent Alvin Sibbett. The order to remove the individual board members from the lawsuit was filed back on June 3rd despite objections from State Attorney General Greg Zeller, who favored having the board members as defendants. Now, Chapman was originally fired from the district back in December of 2011 after he was accused by the board of poorly managing the district's funding, thus leading to extra expenses and financial problems for the corporation. He was specifically accused of taking more than $206,000 in pay that was not in his contract. He was also accused of inappropriately spending a trust fund worth more than $333,000. The lawsuit against Chapman was filed back in August of 2012 by Zeller. The lawsuit sought more than $615,500 from him based on a State Board of Accounts audit. The lawsuit was then amended in December of 2012 to include board members Bill Garrett, Barbara Beard, Jerry Harris, Corey Falkenberg, and James Lawson. Documents filed at that time asserted that the board members being added to the lawsuit were either delinquent officers or sureties of the officers who may have been victims of the theft of the money in question. The lawsuit was just the beginning of Chapman's troubles. He fled to Louisiana after he was dismissed as Cannelton's superintendent. He was actually a finalist for a position with a Baton Rouge area school district, but he was not hired after word of his legal issues surfaced. Chapman then began working at a car dealership in the Shreveport area. He was later arrested there and extradited back to Indiana on 2 Class C felonies for theft and 2 Class D felonies for official misconduct. One of Indiana's largest natural gas utilities is selling its coal mining subsidiary to a southern Indiana-based coal mining company, putting more than 800 coal mining jobs at risk. Evansville-based Vectren Corporation officials announced yesterday that they're selling Vectren Fuels to Sunrise Coal LLC for just under $300 million, with capital adjustments not to exceed $325 million. The sale is expected to be finalized later this year with Sunrise Coal, a subsidiary of Hallador Energy Company. Now, Vectren Fuels currently owns 3 coal mines here in southwestern Indiana that employ nearly 850 coal miners. Those coal mining jobs are not guaranteed after the sale is finalized, but Vectren notes that Sunrise Coal will start the hiring process soon and that all of those miners who are currently employed will be considered for hire. County officials statewide are concerned about the financial burdens that sweeping changes to Indiana's criminal code will cause by sending more low-level nonviolent offenders to local community corrections programs and jails instead of to state prisons. The new guidelines that went into effect on Tuesday established 6 felony ranges for sentencing instead of 4. They also decrease minimum sentences for many crimes, but they also call for the most serious felons to serve 75% of their sentences instead of 50% as it was before. The law allows for $11 million in grants to community corrections and probation departments if the Department of Correction is able to save money because of these changes, but if there are no savings, there are no grants. Finally this evening, results are now in from a state excise police initiative aimed at keeping state businesses from selling alcohol to minors. Data from the compliance check shows that more than 91% of Indiana's alcoholic beverages establishments were not willing to sell alcohol to minors. Between January 1st and June 30th, excise officers and underage youth teamed up to do the survey for alcohol compliance. More than 7,900 inspections were done statewide. Of those, just 695 businesses failed, making the total compliance rate a healthy 91.2%. Those businesses found to be most willing to sell alcohol to minors were civic centers at just over 22%, hotels just over 11%, liquor stores also just over 11%, restaurants and bars at 10.8%, and farm wineries at 10.7%. Those least likely to sell to minors were small breweries who had no failures, drugstores at 3.5%, grocery stores at 5.6%, and fraternal and social clubs at 5.9%. The State Alcohol and Tobacco Commission originally launched this initiative back in April of 2007. Since that time, the number of Indiana businesses that were willing to sell alcohol to minors has fallen every year. Those businesses willing to sell to minors has fluctuated between the 5.2 and 8.75% range over the last few years. When the initiative started, it was at 33.1%. State Excise Police say the compliance inspections will continue in order to reduce the number of businesses willing to sell alcohol to underage youth. All right, coming up after the break, your local forecast, sports with Kurt Guxell, and Inform with Maggie Masters and Shanna Hallett. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.